Yeah, and as for Halloween night itself, pure magic right there. You know, it was the one night of the year where it seemed like every kid in the neighborhood was outside at night at the same time, running from porch to porch with pillowcases full of Milk Duds and Smarties and Tootsie Roll Pops. Hey everyone, my name is Perry, and welcome back to the Cassette Phase. So I was going to try and wait until October 1st to make this video, but I had some time today, so I figured why not? We're close enough. Because even though the weather hasn't gotten any cooler yet, really, I'm ready for Halloween. And that means that it's time to put out all the fun Halloween stuff here in the den. But here at the Cassette Phase, that doesn't just mean, hey, come watch me put my decorations out. No, it means we're going to share some memories and do some reminiscing about one of the best times of the year. Because, as we know, growing up in the 80s and the 90s, Halloween season felt like an event. You know, from the moment that October rolled around, you would see decorations in your school hallways and your classrooms. There would be cartoon specials on TV that were appointment viewing and meant to be shared experiences that were talked about the next day at school. And those unforgettable aisles and aisles of costumes at your local stores. You know, the costumes with the thin plastic mask that barely allowed you to breathe, but announced exactly who you were because there was a big cartoon picture of the character printed on the front of your smock. Yeah, and as for Halloween night itself, pure magic right there. You know, it was the one night of the year where it seemed like every kid in the neighborhood was outside at night at the same time, running from porch to porch with pillowcases full of Milk Duds and Smarties and Tootsie Roll Pops. You can almost hear the sound of sneakers on pavement, and the thrill in the voices when word got out that this particular house had full-size candy bars. Yeah, back then, Halloween was about imagination and freedom and maybe a little bit of danger and mischief mixed in. But like many things that we talk about here on this channel, it was all about a feeling. That rush of being out after dark with your best friends, living out your own spooky adventure for just one night out of the year. So, as we enter into spooky season, we're going to try our best to recapture some of that magic. And it starts with today's video. And because I love Halloween so much, I could see this being a longer video. So just sit back and relax, maybe grab a snack or your favorite beverage, and just hang out with me here while we reminisce about the glory days of Halloween. And also put some really fun stuff out here in the den. Sound like fun to you? Come hang out. Okay everyone, welcome back to the Ottoman, and welcome to another great day here in the den, where for today's background noise I've got a couple different things going. I've got some old Halloween commercials from the 80s, just a compilation, playing on the smart TV, and then over on the CRT I've got Monster Squad going, which is a perfect movie for this time of year. But yeah, so if you're new to the channel, every video we do just a little brief retro show and tell at the beginning before we get into the main topic of the video. And we call that segment, as you can see here on the screen, today's time capsule. It could be anything. It could be just a random object from somewhere here in the den, somewhere in the collection. Maybe it fits in with a theme, maybe it doesn't. Just something that I want to show and talk about that has a lot of memories attached to it that maybe isn't, a big enough item for its own full video. So that's kind of where this came from. We used to do the cassette of the day. It eventually morphed into today's time capsule. So here we are. And for today's, I want to go with, I guess, a toy, a plush, maybe you could call it. from childhood that, now this isn't my exact childhood one, my exact item from back then, but one that I found later in later years. In one of those moments where it was like, you see something and you instantly recognize it from 40 years ago. Just such a cool feeling, and that definitely happened when I found this random puppet of a jack-o'-lantern, I guess. And I've got some funny stories about this, so bear with me. I know this isn't the most exciting thing I've ever shown you guys, but I do have some funny stories about it. So this was just one of many stuffed animals or plushies, I guess, that we had, in our bedroom. For years, me and my brother had separate rooms. Then when we moved, we shared a room for a little while, and there was always just a giant pile of stuffed animals, whether it was 2 piles or 1. I just remember we always had a ton of them around, as most kids did back in the 80s and the early 90s. Well, this was one of them. So I don't remember if this was mine or his or how we got it or anything, but we named everything back then. We gave all of our stuffed animals names and little backstories. I guess we were creative, I don't know, or if that's just something that all kids did back then, because we didn't have as much, other things, competing for our attention. But we named this guy Gotcha Last. And I'm going to tell you where we got that from. So anybody on this channel who has ever watched Pinwheel, the old show on Nickelodeon, and I think it aired on other networks, in Canada and some other places too, but Pinwheel was one of my favorite shows as a very, very young kid. It's one of the first shows I can remember sitting down and watching. Well, there were a couple of puppets on that show that their names were Plus and Minus. And if I can find a good picture of them, I'll put it in here. But yeah, Plus and Minus. And I don't know, for whatever reason, my little kid brain associated this guy with those puppets. And they, on that show, played a game called Gotcha Last. It was basically just like tag and then tag back. It was like their little ongoing gag that they did. He would tag you, and then he'd say "Gotcha Last," and you'd tag him back, and then he'd say it, and then it kind of went on and on. And so that's why we named this thing Gotcha Last. And as we got older, I'm happy that we hung on to it for a little while, because it eventually turned into our indoor basketball. We had our Michael Jordan hoop in our bedroom when we moved to Texas. I remember specifically. We had it set up, and we had lost the ball. The little rubber ball that came with it was long gone, and we didn't really have a basketball that was safe to play in the house with. This was a room that had TV in it and Super Nintendo and all kinds of stuff, a stereo. So we had to be careful with what we used, and this guy became our basketball, and that's what it was used for years and years. But now it's just a nostalgic little stuffed animal that is obviously Halloween themed. So when we're putting stuff out today, putting the decorations out, I'm gonna have to find a spot for it, because just lots of good memories associated with something so simple and basic, but fun stories. So there you have it. All right, so I've got my bin down from the attic that has all my Halloween decorations in it, for the den here. I figure we'll just kind of go through it, and I'll talk about the stuff as we pull it out, and then of course share some memories, stories, whatever we have, and then find a place to put it. I have a pretty good idea of where most of this stuff's going to go, of course, but it'll be fun to hang out while we're putting everything in its place. Still got some old commercials going. I actually have a playlist of I shared it with you guys last year, of retro nostalgic Halloween videos. It's got like some cartoons, some commercial compilations, some video game playthroughs. You can find it. I've got it as a public playlist on my channel if you ever want to check it out. I think it's about 30 videos long. Just something fun to have going in the background and perfect for today. So you can see what I've got on top here. It's my Poltergeist pillow. That's definitely going to go on the couch. You probably remember from before. So let me get that unwrapped, and we will put it over there in its spot. Be right back with you. All right, there it is. Very cool little throw pillow. I think I got that at Fan Expo in Dallas a couple years ago. You guys know Poltergeist, the original, is one of my favorite movies, especially for the Halloween season. So unfortunately, when you put a bunch of stuff out, you have to put some stuff away, which is, that's fine. I'll do it again at Christmas as well. But I'm going to take this pillow down for now and replace it with this guy. There we go. Got to keep Alf. We'll keep Alf for the time being. All right, let's see what else we got over here. Okay, so this book that's on top, this was, I found this at a flea market. I don't know if it was somebody's like craft project, probably. All it is, literally, is an orange hardback book, and somebody took like electrical tape and put a jack-o'-lantern on it. Very basic, but orange is one of my favorite colors, if not my favorite color. I thought that looked cool. So let's see. Probably find a spot for it somewhere on the shelves, right? It is a book after all. Yeah, let me think that over and see if I can find a good spot for it, and I'll show you where it winds up. All right, so for now, I don't know if that's where it's gonna stay permanently, but I just stuck it up there on that shelf next to Slimer. I think it looks kind of cool. We'll go with it for the time being. All right, let's see what else we got. Okay, so this, wow, this thing is so cool. It's missing a piece, I think just one. This is one of those Super 7 cardboard cutout things of Skeletor. You know, in the early days of the den, I had that thing hanging right up above the couch. Like, it was front and center right there up on that wall. And it's been, unfortunately, just kind of stored away since then. So what I'm thinking is I might put him on the inside of the door here, inside the walk-in toy box. So maybe right here. I think old Skelly might look kind of cool right there. So I don't know. I don't know if I want to use sticky tack. That kind of takes the paint off sometimes, I think. I don't know. I may use little tacks or little nails or something. We'll see. I don't want to do too much damage to the door, but we'll figure it out. But first thing I want to do is get it out and make sure it's not missing like an arm or a leg or something. So let me do that, and we'll see what he looks like. Okay, guys, now I remember why I didn't put him back in the room sooner, because when I took him down to paint a few years ago, I think his arms got torn. This is kind of, I'm remembering this now. So yeah, he's missing his arms, unfortunately. So it really does me no good. Although, I don't know, I might, this will be for another day, but I might trim that, you know, cut the head and hang that in there. We'll see. That's a bummer, because it was such a cool, you know, object, cool item to have on the wall, but it's okay. Still kind of cool to see, but that's why I didn't hang him in the closet sooner. There we go. All right, so moving on. As you probably saw, I've got several different, you know, variations of the McDonald's Halloween buckets here in my bin. Some modern, of course, which, you know, I may not display the modern ones this year. I'm kind of limited on space, but they're still kind of cool to have. I know they're doing them again this year, along with, you know, I think Burger King's doing a version. I think Dunkin' Donuts is doing a version. So we'll have several to choose from. But in my opinion, nothing will ever compare to the original. This one definitely needs a spot. And this one definitely needs a spot. And I don't know if you guys remember from last year, but I like to put little LED votive candles inside those. And then, you know, if I'm in here at night watching a movie or something, dim the lights down and just have those kind of flickering. It's really cool. So I do have a couple of others down here. Bear with me as I dump some stuff out that I'm definitely going to have to get to at some point. Is this a duplicate? Not exactly. I think the first year they redid these, they did, like that one's got 3 different faces on it. And then this one's got 3 different faces on it. I think this one's kind of cool. And then let's see, we've got, let me dump those out. Same thing here. These are a little dusty, I apologize. You know, they've been in the attic all year. I don't know why they didn't give us actual lids. You know, it couldn't have been that expensive. They gave us this piece, which I guess is meant to represent the lid. I don't know. spring for the extra 2 inches of plastic and give us the actual lids like we got on the vintage ones. But let's see, we got one more, I think. And I don't have a vintage of the green one. I need to track one of those down sometime. Move these action figures. I will come back to those, I promise. Yeah, so we got a little assortment here. I usually wind up putting the vintage ones, or maybe, I know I end up putting some on this shelf. I think last year I did the retro ones there, and then I put the vintage ones somewhere else. So I'll probably start there, maybe move, you know, those glasses and that hat, or maybe those books, and at least put the two vintage ones up there so they're on full display. And let me try that and see what it looks like, and then I'll bring you guys right back after that. Yeah, I think that's a good start. I don't know if that's where I'll leave them. You know, we've got some other things to mix in, but I think they fit okay right there. And as I was doing that, look what popped up on the playlist here. Ghosts and Goblins on the NES. One of the most challenging, most frustrating games ever made, but figured it was cool for a Halloween playlist, you know. All right, I think I'm going to set these to the side. I don't know where I'm going to put them or if I'm going to put them out at all this year, but let me set these to the side and we'll go through the few remaining items that we have left in that bin. And while I was doing that, I went ahead and stuck old Gotcha Last down there next to Bart. You know, all I'm really looking for with something like that is to catch a glimpse of it once in a while, and, you know, a little bit of joy when you see something like that that immediately takes you back in time. So, all right, let's see what else we've got. Oh, this is cool. Okay, so here we've got one of those Casper hand puppets. Now, was this a Pizza Hut thing? I want to say that it was. I want to say that it was made, you know, by the same people or as these Land Before Time ones. Same company, they feel the same. I'm almost positive. And I've got another one of the Land Before Time ones right there. I think this glows in the dark, if I remember correctly. I know it's 90s, but I loved that Casper movie. I still like watching it every year around this time. Let's see what else we got in here. So this skeleton guy, it's not the exact same, but it's very, very reminiscent of, there was like a rubber skeleton that was about this size and looked kind of like this that used to hang in our house at Halloween when we were kids. In fact, it may have been out longer than just the Halloween season. You know, my parents were big Grateful Dead fans, so it stands to reason that they may have just had a skeleton hanging up year round. I don't know, but this guy is cool. So last year I had, flashing back here, I had a bunch of stuff on the walls back here behind this couch. You know, shelves, toys, all kinds of things going back before I kind of simplified it a little bit. And I think that this skeleton hung right there by that hanging plant. So I don't know what I'm going to do with it this year. I'll have to do some thinking on that. I'm sure I'll find a spot for it though. Let's see what else we've got here. Okay, now these are cool. These are from the, these are modern. Well, they're probably 5 years old at this point. I have this one too. These came from the Scooby-Doo toy line that came out a few years back. I just thought they were cool for Halloween time of year. And I already know what I'm going to do with those. I do the same thing every year with those guys. Let's see. Here we've got... Is this Itchy or is this Scratchy from The Simpsons Treehouse of Horror? I think the cat would be Scratchy, right? I should know that, being the Simpsons fan that I am, but... Yeah, I just think that those Treehouse of Horror episodes are some of the best episodes of The Simpsons, especially like in those first 7-8 years. Just classic stuff. Somewhere, and I don't know where, I'll have to look. It may be over there on the shelf. I'll have to do some looking, but somewhere I have a homemade VHS compilation of like the first 10 seasons of The Simpsons Treehouse of Horror. I think I got it on Etsy. It's really cool. I'll have to dig that out. But love The Simpsons any time of year, but especially at Halloween. Okay, now this, I can tell you what this goes to right now. Let's head into the walk-in toy closet for a moment. Speaking of which, I'm still absolutely loving it in here, guys. I think this is just such a fun use of this space. And I've added some stuff too that was hiding away for a long time. Somewhere I have a Birdie the Early Bird figure. I think it is that one right there. That goes, I think this is supposed to be her costume. Yeah, so I'm gonna go ahead and pull her down. Put her in her Halloween costume. And then find a new spot for her because she has to be featured and highlighted. And I'll have to do that when I have two hands because you have to take the pumpkins apart and then put them around her and then snap them back together. Cool Happy Meal toy. Also, we've got a couple of Smurfs. Halloween themed. So recently I was working on a slideshow for my dad's memorial service a little while back, and I was looking through a bunch of old pictures, like really, really old pictures from some photo albums. And if I can find them, if I have them handy, I'll put them in here so you guys can see. But there were times when me and my brother would just be playing, you know, with a bunch of toys on the floor, and a lot of them were Smurfs. Like, I just realized that we had Smurfs around a lot. I've told you that I have the Smurf bedding, like the sheets, from when I was a kid, which I love. I think they're awesome. And I was just coming to the realization that I might need to give the Smurfs some love. You know, I've got a bunch of them. I wouldn't mind getting some more, at least tracking down the ones that are in those pictures, and maybe giving them their own little display. So I think the Smurf figures are so cool, super nostalgic. But yeah, these Halloween ones especially, for the time being, until I can get to that project, these are going to get a spot, you know, being showcased out in the den for this time of year at least. So, okay, now check this guy out. Oh my goodness. Blast from the past right here. Everybody had these little fluff ball things. I forgot what they're called. Somebody in the comments section last year told me what these were called, but they've got the sticky feet on the bottom. And it seems like these popped up at every holiday. Anytime there were school prizes involved, you know, the treasure box, if you did a good job, you would wind up with some of these little googly-eyed things, which are basically just little craft projects, but they were everywhere. And I love this little Halloween one, so it's gonna find a good spot on the shelf. We've got the orange lights. I will test these out and make sure that they still work. Chances are, there are two strands here. Chances are that one of them is burnt out, and I may have to get a new set, because I love putting orange lights up. I string them from one end of the bookshelves all the way to the other. And then again, it just makes for a nice Halloween ambiance when you're in here watching It's the Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown, or something on that screen right there. So I'll test those here in a few minutes, and if they're working, I'll go ahead and hang them up with you guys, but we'll have to see. Now let me move those to the side so we have some room. All right, so this was a recent find. Last year, I think, maybe year before. Target, I believe. You know, Target does some cool retro-inspired, like, Halloween stuff. They've got some really cool things again this year that I'll have to show you. I got some stickers. They had some really cool, like, cardboard cutouts that I didn't get, but they had some stickers that were, like, reminiscent of the real Ghostbusters, which were really cool. And I just think this is cool, you know, 80s looking, hot pink skeleton head with some 80s sunglasses on. So we'll find a spot for that somewhere. Okay, so this coffee mug here, I've had this for years and years. You know, Darth Vader as a skull, as a skeleton. I think this was also Target several years back. But what I like to do is put these little guys, I can position these action figures here. And it's not going to work right now. I'll have to do some finagling, but I like to put them in this mug and then take down my, sorry, it's a little bit of a mess in here right now. Bear with me. take down my my Pac-Man mug with the pins in it and put the Darth Vader one in its place there on the desk. Oh, and Monster Squad ended. We can't have that. Play movie. Let's get that fired back up again. So yeah, that's where this will go once I have it situated. This is just a little, not vintage, but it reminds me of the vintage Halloween pails that were everywhere when we were kids. You know, I always felt bad for the kids that trick-or-treated with these, you know, the full-size ones. Because you know that's not holding nearly enough candy. Even the plastic bags that they would give us at school that had like the safety messages on them, you know what I'm talking about. Even those didn't hold enough. And I think that's why we ended up, as kids in the 80s, trick-or-treating with pillowcases. And while we're talking about that, what were some of your guys' most memorable costumes? I know that I was Orko one year. I don't have a picture of me in the costume, but I have a picture of the costume itself that I'll go ahead and show you here. That was a great costume. I loved Orko. He was probably my favorite Masters of the Universe character, although looking back at it now as an adult, he was a little bit annoying at times, but I loved that. I think that year my friend went as Casper. One year I was the Pink Panther, which I do have a picture of that, which I will put in now. Great old picture. I love that I have that. Definitely a memorable costume in that Ben Cooper style. You know, speaking of that, they've been doing those little action figures of the Ben Cooper figures. You know, I think they did them last year, which they were just like monsters, kind of the more generic. But this year they're doing some licensed ones, and I cannot wait to get my hands on, if I can find them. They did a Gremlins one and they did an Alf one, and I especially want that Alf. So if anybody at any of your local Targets finds that Alf figure, let me know. If you pick it up for me, I will Venmo you, or we'll figure out an arrangement, because I haven't been able to find it. But I think those figures are so cool and just so reminiscent of those costumes that we wore as kids. Once we graduated a little bit beyond the smock and plastic mask costume, I know that I also went one year as Michelangelo from the Ninja Turtles. I think I also have a picture of that. If I can find it, I will put that in here. That was a fun year because I think my brother was a California raisin. So just great memories of trick-or-treating in those old costumes. Back to modern day though. We've got a couple of Funko Pops. I'm not big into the Funko Pops these days anymore, but if I find a unique one that's, you know, themed like a certain holiday, I still grab them from time to time. You know, I still grab Simpsons ones if I find them. And this one here, the Scarlet Witch, is one of my favorite, if not my favorite, Marvel characters of all time. My favorite Avenger for sure. And here you've got Wanda, the Scarlet Witch herself, carrying a Halloween pail that looks a lot like this one. So that one will be going out somewhere here in the den, along with, I just squished this little fuzz ball, oops. Along with this one, which is awesome. I love this one. This is from last year. This is a Care Bear. This is Grumpy Bear as Frankenstein's monster. How cool is that? And you know, the thing that drew me to it initially was this classic old artwork. Like, look at this. Let's see if I can find it. Am I imagining that? It might be on the inside. Somewhere in this packaging, there is some great old retro Care Bears art. There it is. You know, it's a small detail, but little things like this matter. Like, check that out. You know, I don't know if I would have gotten it if it didn't have that in there. I probably still would have, but that was like the selling point for me. Just so cool. So we will have to find this guy. And they did some others that I didn't like as much. You know, they're okay, but this is definitely my favorite. And yeah, that is the end of the tub there. So let me put you down for just a couple minutes and put some of this stuff out. I'm going to test these lights also and see if they work. And then we'll come back and see where everything's at and give you a quick update. Okay, so surprisingly, because these are modern, Christmas or holiday or Halloween lights. These actually work. I just plugged them in and tested them and they're good to go. So I'm gonna go ahead and string these up really quick. Might not make you guys watch the whole thing. We'll see how long it takes, but yeah, my eventual goal is to do like a Halloween movie night in here. I know I've talked about that quite a bit on the channel, that we're going to do some movie nights in here. And I think having these orange lights glowing along with the flickering in the Halloween buckets and the flickering lights on the top of the Ewok village, don't forget about that. I think we might have a really cool setup in here for Halloween. So let's see. This is always there's always some trial and error involved with this. It usually takes me at least 2 or 3 tries and adjustments. Yeah, see, you got a big gap there, so I'm gonna have to figure that out. And then if I remember correctly from last year, the little tab that I had here was, it broke off. So just balance that there for now. And let's take a look. So I need to move, it's really not that noticeable. But if I can move this over to where the plant kind of covers it a little bit. So let me give myself a few inches of slack. Adjust here. And then adjust here. Yeah, there we go. The plant hides the gap. And then over here, there we go. Take a quick look. Doesn't have to be perfect, of course. I think that'll work. I may fidget with it some more later, off camera, but for today's purposes, I think we're good. All right, guys, it's not as dramatic a change as it is during Christmas time, as you'll see here in a couple of months, but it's a good feeling here. I am still missing a few things, so I got to gather a few more little objects from the attic, and I'll put those out this week. But figured I'll go ahead and take you around the room really quick and just show you what we've put out, and hope you enjoy this little miniature tour. And there we are. So I hope that you all enjoyed our informal little Halloween hangout here in the den today. And if you did, and if you're new around here, consider subscribing. Also, don't forget to like the video, but only if you actually liked the video. But for now, and as always, relax. Enjoy life and be kind. We'll see you in the next one.